Hi, everybody. I hope your New Year's so far is going reasonably well. We have a few questions tonight. One is from Jennifer Butler. And by the way, I should thank everybody for sending in questions as they come. I'll try and answer them the best I can. She says, does alchemy occur when the form is influenced by the flow of energy? Can the physical form actually change in some way? I think it might be important to try and understand that energy is energy, and energy influences energy. How to find an example with that would be the right metaphor is difficult, but we have ideas that relate around the sun, and if we're in a dark room, we turn a light on. That's really basically energy. It helps us to see, and one can say it influences us and it relates to us. Same is true with the sun. However, it's not a very good metaphor. Although, if you're thinking in a certain way, it could be. When you're dealing with the word alchemy, what you're really dealing with is really basically one form shifting into another form. And that's where dealing with higher states comes in. I wrote a little bit about some of these things, and I'll try and just talk about it. Energy is affected by energy, and we are energy. We are made of energy, or we are energy. And our engagement with more awareness at a deeper level begins to soften down our relationship with these lower levels. And what I mean by that is it's really, in a kind of way, kind of complicated, and try not to make it too simplified, but that's how we try to make everything so not so simple. When you're dealing with higher states, we have a whole big difficulty with even talking about higher states, for example, because we're so aligned with the idea that a version of words that we can express explains things extremely well. And it only gives us references. See, words are referential. They refer to something for a purpose that may be trying to, for example, explain something or engage and talk to people about somehow how we feel or how we believe the world is. So alchemy, in a kind of a way, is hard to explain because you can't viscerally perceive a change in you until you start noticing through experience something that has occurred in you that makes you slightly different than how you believe you were before. And this construct of belief is a kind of versioning of how we see the world. And it's vastly, in most cases, different than how the world is. Opinions are related to belief. Perceptions are related to belief. And the strangest thing about linking up or being a part of an alchemical change in an individual is quite, let's say, difficult for us to allow ourselves to perceive because we're caught in the middle of something. We're caught in the middle of maintaining our relationship with how we have been. Now, there's a difficulty. How we have been is really kind of images of what we see in our lives or believe we see in our lives that emphasizes the way we think we are. We are many, many, many things at different times in different contexts. So in a kind of a way, if you look at a higher state, one could then attempt to understand what a higher state would be like. Well, let's go to an extreme. A higher state, the highest of all states, would be infinite, loving, constantly engaging in any circumstance from a distance. Almost like a version of non-participation. But not really. Because if you are at a higher state, which, presuming you could handle it, you would be perceiving directly how another person is internally without any response from your personality per se. Try that one on for size. So we don't do that. What we do is we engage with a version of how things need to be. And this is very valuable to us. Relative to how we kind of allow ourselves to see things. Because we really don't like to see everything we do, and in every context, in every situation, exactly how it is relative to our nervousness and fears. We prefer to see it relative to some kind of internal, personalized sense of value. Ours, of course. Our sense of value, our sense of how we interpret things being right or okay or wrong, or we do this interpretation. That interpretation is affected by everything that is a part of us, that has been a part of us in our lifetime. It's an experiential process. It also is how you attempt to think you believe things should be or aren't. And there's all kinds of responses to that ever-changing engagement that you have. Unless you're reified, stiffened by different parts of you, by saying, if you need to be, as in Joseph Campbell's interaction with these facsimiles of personality, you need to be the hero in your own world, in your own engagement with life. This makes it very, very difficult for us because in that particular case, we cannot be separate from our translation of what is going on. And so this is pretty consistent for everybody. In our dilemma with this one, in an alchemical effect, if that higher state is actually shifting and changing aspects of you to make it more aware and more similar to it, then what does that mean? It means that you will begin to be aware of how you function, small thing, not a big thing yet, relative to what you can handle in your assessment or translation of your engagement with others and your past, and of course your future, relative to your willingness to allow that to occur. So if indeed you do that kind of thing, and you're willing to take a look and not necessarily agree with how you evaluate your particular engagement with life, this is hard to listen to. You will then find that you are becoming a little bit like that higher state, which does not judge, which is very strange for many to think of. Loving doesn't seem to be a judging element. Judging is putting up a person and saying this is right and that's wrong and this is, or you're right and you're wrong. And many versions of responses to that. But it's watching you, engaging with you, and following the line of reference that you believe you're in love with. Alchemy, one level of loving affects another level of loving. In that particular case, then, what are we looking at? This should make everybody nervous about higher states engaging with our lower states. Number one, it can increase the amount of love that you have for how you function. Therefore, you become more important than even you think you are currently in relating to life. This is the normal nature of loving. Think about this, please. To look at this in that way, one could say, well, then how am I ever going to see aspects of myself that I use to create an image in front of me for the purpose of becoming something other than how I was before or am now? I think this is very difficult for us to make sense of, because we're looking at it from a perspective, our own personal perspective, that allows us to be okay with us. That's another aspect of the loving part, because we defend how we function, no matter what it is, the best we can, to maintain a sense of loving. Yes, I know it's a sense of loving us as we are, and that can't be right. No, it's not about being right. It's not about being wrong. It's about perceiving. That higher state will help us to begin to perceive it. It doesn't judge it. So if another has a little aspect or an aspect of higher states within them, there will be a reflexive response beginning to occur where they begin not to judge others as much as they may have used to, or not to validate themselves and invalidate others with respect to a personal translation of an aspect of life. This is complicated, but the complication is really interesting because that higher state allows you to be influenced by it as you might allow that to be of value to you. At the same time, of course, you are defending your relationship with how you've lived or how you think you need to live so that you can be that hero aspect and judge others for what they're doing. This is, in our world, this construct that I've just discussed doesn't make any sense because we know the simple logic of this versus that, and that must be true, and this must be true, and then we come up with a conclusion, and that puts value on the shaping of that form that you have entrusted yourself and engaged with in the making all the way along the line of your life. You see, at the same time, higher state is looking at that and saying something like, I don't know what it would say, but it would be something maybe like, you can come up with your own thing. So that's how you make sense of things. There is a love within that making sense of things for yourself. Therefore, the alchemy of your use of love, in your use of love, that's an alchemy. You use that internal will or the internal love that you have for you for the purpose of shaping a form relative to a rising sun, an important piece in the epic of your particular life. This is not a very friendly way to talk about us as individuals, but it is an honest way to talk about us as an individual relative to perhaps another way of looking at it from a distance, not negating, but embracing it as the current level of engagement that we can be involved with. Our involvement with it is a sincere one, relatively speaking. We're being sincere about the need to be the way we are in a moment relative to that particular need to be that way. From our perspective, of course, that's our inner training. And that inner training of yours can only be seen by you relative to shards of mirror or glass that we're enamored with. As an award, see, awards can be positive or negative, it doesn't mean anything. It gives us some form of value. The other day I was talking to somebody we were talking about hockey, and all this old stuff came pouring in so I could talk about it. And I thought, this is really interesting. I haven't thought about that for years. Or maybe off and on during those years. Why is it coming up? Because a number of us, having played the game, we're speaking about it relative to a moment. And you could hear the embellishments of a fraction of emotion, a fraction of expression that occurred in a moment many years ago. These are the shards that we bring into our place. Take a look at them. In between those shards is a lot of other stuff that we don't even notice and perhaps don't want to notice because they are not as meaningful in a three-dimensional, or rather a two-dimensional form, attempting to notice three-dimensionally. In other words, broader than we can allow based on these shards being very important. These are things that those higher states recognize as aspects of our value according to our interpretations of life as we have lived them. And under these circumstances, this makes it very difficult for us because we have a kind of cohabitation with them. In other words, we hold them dear to us because they were pieces of our lives that we are comfortable with. As you engage with these higher states, the alchemy of this is that these higher states help you to see things more as a whole. And we begin to understand we had wonderful moments and not so wonderful moments, and of many emotions, many physical engagements, many thoughts, and many ways of thinking, which are all part of an ever-continuing being of consciousness operating on more than one dimension. So it begins to help you to understand this alchemical process, that there is much more in a positive manner within us, that we don't have to hold some of these images for a long period of time as how we have to be valued from our perspective, or not valued from our perspective. These are still the same shards, pieces of broken mirrors. So, and we can't really see deeply. So we hold on to lines that relate to these things to make us feel more comfortable and comforted by what we hold dear to ourselves. If you take a look at these things, you could actually say, if I'm seeing them better than I could before and trying to soften down my reaction to them, that may be the help of a higher state. Our system, on the average, is not built to feel comfortable with some of this kind of seeing. We have a kind of nature of humanity that, in some ways, some folks can be comfortable with how they've functioned, how they've hurt other people, how they continue to hurt other people. They have a very interesting engagement with these things based on the idea that, well, maybe other people deserve this kind of thing if they respond that way. This, of course, is a very, let's say, self-focused approach, but you could also say self-love approach, since there are billions of people on the planet, there's a whole lot of love here. Doesn't always look that way when love clashes with each other. But that love is, no matter how defensive it is of its own love, is a kind of willfulness that holds tight to a single place of reference that is called an individual, a city, a nation, an area, whatever it may be. If you can look at it broader, then you can begin to understand that there is a tremendous softness and subtlety that can affect a relationship with these planes. But then you ask the question, how will that make me feel if I'm filled with a love that's different than what I have within me? That alchemical movement could it make me feel more vulnerable? And the me I'm talking about is the individual who is trying desperately to hold themselves in a particular place for a particular purpose, the purpose being attached to, being only one way. One seasoned, loving way that individual believes they must maintain, otherwise they cannot in any way survive, or they would not be considered valuable by others. We underestimate others tremendously, and we underestimate our capacity to engage in a broader, loving manner. And mainly, we do that through fear. And this alchemical structure is profoundly strong, but subtle. I think it's a bit scary. Now, that part should never be spoken, of course, because our idealistic way of looking at this alchemical purpose and process is automatically you become more loving, and therefore you're more loving all the time, or we're defining people who are spiritual, and you have to act that way and in certain ways all the time. I am not a subscriber to that form of expression necessarily. Could it happen that way? I don't have any doubt that it might. Why? Because the minute you say that it can't, it certainly can. But in our world, personalities look at things as if they're achievements. And this is a tremendous achievement that Jennifer is talking about here. Because when energy comes in, she says, some of these experiences make her feel mutable and fluid with the flow of that energy, like really soft and tremendous ability to let go. However, we have a very interesting thing that occurs with our training. We can only take so much for so long. And whatever that is within you, you'll begin to find out. You will stiffen. Your voice will raise. You'll be, this or that. And all of us have these moments. And that's not necessarily loving. But some people might think that that is kind of loving. It validates their rightness and the way they engage and believe that energy itself is power for purpose that relates to the individual rather than relating to higher states. That is an aspect of thinking that we have on our planet now. It's been always that kind of way. The more intensity you have, the more powerful you must be. Not convinced that that's ever been true, but we've used that definition in all kinds of ways on our planet for an awfully long time, probably about 250,000 years. Okay, is the awareness or training of our animal nature also a form of alchemy? I would have to say yes. There's a couple of things at hand here. The coarser the level, the more engagement with survival you need. The coarser the level of thinking you have, the coarser the level of emotion you have, the coarser the level of engagement physically you have. I would have said, the more you notice that that is coarser, or if it fits a mold or an image you have, then you don't notice it at all. You would never believe that you are coarse because you're filled with this sense of value that you place upon an idea that is not necessarily as valuable as you believe it is. Now, these things are circumstantial. Under some circumstance, you might need to be coarser to engage with others. If 2 or 3 people attack you, you might have to think of what do I do? Do I run? Do I engage? Come up with something that will be helpful to you on that coarser level. These things are not so simple again, but training is very fascinating. You can see how an attempt to soften does change you, but the internal images and defenses help you to protect yourself against change, by the way. So what we have happen is you become softer, and this is a process, and then suddenly there's a reflexive action to become as you were before, but kind of hidden, a little in the softer realm, but your purposes are very similar because you're still running the engagement that you have with life relative to your past experience. All of us have this. And renderings of it, of course. And this is categorically within the nature of the species, our species, and animal species as well. Strangely enough, though, this alchemical process has an effect on you. And, for example, if you've toughened up your emotional system to a point where you ache not to be soft and you hold yourself in that place, then in a kind of a way, that softness as it comes in will make you feel less guarded, less protected, just plainly vulnerable. And it's having an effect on your personalizations. Now, there's a number of ways to respond to that, and you might become more defensive, or you might become unknown to you, just so vulnerable internally that it bothers you, and you're uncomfortable with that bothering. It's truly within the possibility of inner growth to have that feeling of tremendous vulnerability. No one would like that. Nobody would like that, because you have constructed a system, a personality system, that, at least to the best of its ability, deals with life and those this plane energies that have an impact on you. And therefore you're constantly engaging and trying to make sense of things based on the best you can do, literally, with circumstances and moments that are very difficult to reflect on. And responses are in the nature of us to do so, to respond. Not only does it tell us that situations are difficult, but it also tells us that we're not doing too well with them. Now, higher state would say, they don't, that's difficult, that's hard to deal with. Still from a distance, but never missing one iota of perception, of seeing, of understanding, compassion, you would call it. This is, once again, it's a kind of a difficult question, because the tones of it are really quite, they don't fit into our normal, natural world very much. But it is an interesting question, and I think a very valuable question to think about. I wish you well with that process of thinking. Jennifer also sent in a dream as well, but it is a little bit personal, Jen, and maybe what we can do the next time we talk is that we can maybe discuss it. So keep that in mind, and when we talk in a few weeks, we'll take a look at that particular dream. Okay. Dreams are often very, very individual, but in dreams, it's so fascinating. Dreams are so interesting because they relate to us, but the tones of dreams are also trying to get, they're like metaphors carrying a message. Every image has a purpose, and they can be really uncomfortable dreams. But if you think of them more as what kind of constructive message can I get out of this? I think that might be helpful, even if it's an uncomfortable dream. What can I get out of this that could be more positive? I wish you well with that one. This next question is from Sonia. And what is the purpose of doing the balancing in the way that we do it during the closing of meditation? Oh boy. This is a question that keeps reappearing from time to time, and it's an interesting question, and I'm going to answer it in a kind of a generalized manner. I'll try and be a little bit specific, but look, we have these, I'm trying to give you an image here. we have these 7 centers. If you look at a Hindu background, Buddhist background, the centers are in the front or in the back, or both. I know that they're in both, front and back. Others believe that they're on the sides, and I know that they're on the sides as well. So there's kind of 4 pathways, front, back, sides. But also, there is a whole series of centers above the head related to constructing a system internally and externally that can handle energy that's softer coming in and helping these centers or chakras or zephyroth, whatever you want to call them. And some may say, well, why do you use different names? I do that because of the nature of humanity's sense of only use this one thing, and this is the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. There's no right way and wrong way to do that. These things just exist. Prior to perceiving them, it may be a theory for you. Perceiving them tells you that they exist. Now, they exist on various levels of engagement with states. Each one of them. We haven't got to the balancing thing yet, but anyway, there we go. So each one of these levels affect other levels that engage with a particular center. So these centers are able to flood together at a very high state. They're also able to link together, 2 different words, at these states. Now remember, our personality's view of these things is independent, individual way of engaging with these things relate to us being the center of this happening. It's the only way we can do it on these planes because of the sensitivity that we have in relating to others and life. Because we have this image of personalization, which is really very important to us. And at these states, we engage with them that way, purposefully. Nothing negative there. Just is. So in doing this, in a subtler way, often I'll say, I put my hands out to the side. In this image, I can't do that. You can't see it. So I put my hands above the head. There is this center that relates to this whole crown area. I have to do the opposite thing because I'm watching myself as a mirror structure. So going like this above the head creates energy, 2 energy centers here very subtly, and touches this one. If the root center is connected to this, it will move to the root center to try and lift that level in the root a little beyond what it's normally used to, so it can affect the other centers it's connected to a little bit more than it could before. As a balancing element, your hands turned on are focused downward, and they're also focused upward. Down and up. Down and up. That kind of thing. Creates a flow of energy upward. Now, without going through the whole thing, because it's really hard to do it here, maybe at a seminar, I'm not sure which one is at the, I'm just asking Marlene which one is out in Carlsbad Springs.
May, beginning of May.
In May, at a seminar, maybe I can speak these things to show you what is happening in relationship to centers above the head, about 6 feet, and so that you can begin to understand that it begins to help you to see a little bit more with a little bit more compassion. Then we can actually accumulate with our trained structures. We can idealize and we can say words and all the rest of it. Doesn't make them real. But they stimulate a system that can be of help to this system all the way through. But also, it can also help you to notice things and how they are. We are a very strong, emotional, engaging species, because that's the level of our particular development. We use emotional planes to activate lower mental planes, which is called logic and stuff like that. Intelligence. And there is emotional intelligence, physical intelligence, mental intelligence. And we bring them together in a thing we call the personality, which is only an energy form. It's just a word we use. We could use donut. But it's a hole in the middle. We don't like that idea, so we won't probably use that too long. But when we live in our lives, we are acting in relationship to constructs that relate to that form, and perpetuation of patterns, the perpetuation of patterns that we have been engaged with for quite a long time, and therefore things like patience and understanding and compromise and misunderstandings and all the rest of the other stuff, frustration, vulnerability, being very positive. All of these things are related directly to us individually, and we have views or impressions or translations or interpretations of life relative to that form. And this is the thing that is kind of affected by a shift in how energy can come in to be supportive and helpful to our growing. Please hear that. To our development and our growing as a being of consciousness. This is very, what can I say, a little bit uncomfortable, because when we talk about ultimate growth, that's not relating to us in our next levels, plural, of growing. Ultimate is something that we can't really understand. We can prognosticate. I was going to say, procrastinate. We can do that too, as well. And we can believe that we've reached this and reached that level, and we can propose it and all the rest of it. But it's not really as real as what we believe. So little by little, we begin to understand the relationship that we have with that linking or the fusing of these states. And it is little by little. I'll see if I left something out. I think I have the feeling that I did. Hang on. This is just, I call it a deeper loving energy helps to shift the personalizations. But also remember, loving energy can increase the love you already have for how you think things should be. With you as I was talking about in Jen's question, as the hero, heroine, whatever it may be. It increases our sensing ability. Yeah, I did forget that. While shaping the personality to be functional as a being of consciousness, as well as a self-focused personality, with the eventual fusion of higher states for higher state purposes. That last part is not easy. In our world, we have ideas about what things should be like. If our life is run by a higher state, we will definitely try to influence that higher state and how things should be by our own definitions or what we believe things should be like in our idealized formation, natural formation of that relates to anticipation of what we think we need to be like to be spiritual in the eyes of others, by the way. Being involved with higher states brings you face to face with the reality that it's in the eyes of higher states that becomes more important, not the eyes of individuals. And this has often been a real, let's say, thorn in our sides, because this idea of higher state beings, not even being honestly high state beings, not even being interested in engaging with us physically, emotionally, because of the nervousness they may or may not have. It's an assumption that to engage at these levels means to be pulled into engaging like these levels. So they're very cautious about this business of being, this is the only right and this is the only wrong. This is difficult for us to understand. It changes the way we see life. Makes it too confusing. Gosh, what would you rather do? Be right the way you are? Or to change into thinking something beyond where you are that's broader? And who's to say that that would be right? You might come up with the idea that somehow you are changing, and you have to be wrong because that change is not the same as it was before. Things were before. It's a dilemma, but interesting question. I think now what we'll begin to do is we'll start to meditate, and we'll just get some music on, and hope to see many of you in North America on the 13th of January. I'm actually looking forward to it. The best to everybody. Bye for now.
Druga Siri Guru Deve Name Ature Name Juga Juga Gurename Saturename Siri Guru Juga Gurename Saturename Siri Guru Juga Gurename Saturename Siri Guru Deve
Ram, 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 Ram,
Om Ram Ram Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityoma Amritam Gamaya Om 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 Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityoma Amritam Gamaya Satchidananda Parabrahma Purushottama Paramatma Shri Bhagavati Sameta Shri Bhagavati Namah Shri Bhagavati Sameta Shri Bhagavati Namah Shri Bhagavati Sameta Shri Bhagavati Namah Shri Bhagavati Namah Shri Bhagavati Namah Om Shanti Shanti Shanti
Now we'll just do the balancing and grounding. Now we'll just do the balancing and the grounding. Take care, everybody.